if you're passionate about learning new things, you'll find a way to succeed. That's my point, right? Where it doesn't matter if, the job market is bad or this. The people that I see are the ones that are winning right now are the ones that can have candor, as in they can quickly switch and do something else entirely different. That can mean switching programming language. That could mean switching like your entire job profile, like what you do as a person.
With me, I'm at the top, that's 1, not 2 or 3. This real life, baby, don't make believe. I just make it look easy like ABC. I'm only 20.
Hey, what's up, good people? Welcome back to City Entrepreneur Season 3. I am your host, Zeke Wanganga, your favorite storyteller around the city. And I'm excited as usual for a new episode because I got the cool cats in KC on the show. So let's get to it. On this show, we dive into real stories of founders, funders, and builders shaping underdog cities, uncovering what it truly takes to launch, grow, and lead a business without the spotlight. This season, we highlight 3 types of guests: seasoned OGs who've built lasting companies, rising founders still in the grind, and the ecosystem leaders turning vision into reality. And now, as you know, there's no BS on this show, just real people, real stories, and practical insights you can use. And today, I got one of the cool cats, the new school, people doing it big. The dude I'm about to bring on literally made 7 figures in his company the first 9 months. I said 7 figures. I know we out here trying to make $7, but this dude here, he got it going on. So our guest today is the founder of Cybership, a logistics technology company based in KC. They are also part of the Launch KC cohort. And by the way, shout out to Launch KC for sponsoring this episode. If you are a founder in KC or around the US who's trying to scale their company, grow it, go to launchkc.org for more info. Our founder today, he grew up in Overland Park, Kansas, and he went to the Blue Valley School District. He worked in New York City shortly after graduating high school for a startup named Sphere Labs as a founder engineer. He also worked in crypto. And today, he's founded a company that focuses on AI for logistics. Help me make welcome the one and only Jeffrey Annaraj. What's up, man?
How you doing, Zig?
Good. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, it's good to be on.
Yeah, how you feeling today?
Pretty good. I don't do a ton of podcasts, but this is, a nice change of pace from what I typically am doing, sitting in a, room in the middle of nowhere.
That's right.
Typing away on my computer. So
don't let them know what we got going on here, but it's excited to, have you on the show to talk about your journey. But I know, and I didn't say this in the intro, by the way, you are barely 21 years old.
Yeah, I'm actually not 20 as of recording this. I'm turning 21 next week. So
wow. So you cannot drink, but you can make a lot of money. That's exciting. But for those who don't know you, Jeff, give them just a brief bio of kind of your journey, because I know, you are from Overland Park, KC, Blue Valley District School, and then you went to New York, you did crypto for a bit, and then now you're back with company. Give us a little bit of a bio of kind of your journey.
Sure. Yeah. So I would say it started off kind of in high school. I used to be kind of one of those kids in the back hustling, trying to make money somehow online. That kind of led me to be really into sneakers and sneaker reselling, thinking about Jordans, Air, any sort of hype sneaker, I would try to get my hands on it. As a result, that's how I kind of got into software and software development. I tried building bots for buying those sneakers at scale, trying to check out, these sneakers faster than any human would. That was my main goal. And I found myself in a community of a lot of these people that were doing the same thing. So as a result, I kind of got really interested in crypto as well, because I got some, exposure to that in high school and just generally learned a lot from kind of just being in the space. When I was in high school, NFTs were popping off. Everybody was talking about meme coins and the next NFT and the next big project, right? And you had people that were just, buying ridiculous amounts of, these little pictures online basically for hundreds of thousands of dollars. And I got into that action. I made a lot of money and then lost a lot of money. So, it was a lot of fun and I enjoyed that journey a lot. And I guess that kind of led me into blockchain development and cryptocurrency strategy, which is kind of my next big role. And that's kind of how I got my job in New York and that sort of thing. But overall, it very much came down to school wasn't really for me. I realized that I enjoyed the process of learning more than anything else, using and kind of taking what I learn and self-learn specifically and put that into a product, right? Whether it's learning a new programming language or learning a new framework that can help build an application. Those were the things that I really kind of was passionate about, and obviously making money as well to some extent. So I kind of started a consultancy firm called Boxland. This was like my first foray into really my own business. I had done a little bit of things before that as well, but they were all one-off things. I would say that Boxland was the most interesting to me because I was working with the real companies, trying to solve real problems, and I was their tech guy that would pretty much dumb it down for a very basic audience, and also have the technical know how to implement those sorts of strategies and solutions. So, it was me basically, literally 17, 18 in high school. And typically I would literally go to class and I would be doing this kind of, consulting projects, billing for hours while in school. And, I was making good money. I will say, I was making probably around $150 an hour, in high school doing that projects and, kind of these one-off things, so yeah.
So I'm fascinated, and for the audience watching today, we have a one of your brands that work with you actually works with Taylor Swift.
Yeah.
Which we'll get to in a minute. So y'all stay on the dial. Stay tuned. But I want to talk about this though, because it's really intriguing to me that you were in high school making all these major moves. Now talk to me, how did you go from high school to New York City? Like how did your, because I also know you're from an immigrant family.
Yeah, that's right.
How did you go from high school to New York City, and then give me that journey?
Sure. Yeah. Happy to. I guess like really where it starts off is that I graduated high school pretty young. I was actually 17 when I graduated high school. As most immigrant parents, my parents were like, okay, well, on to college, right? For me, I was like, I don't know if I necessarily want to do that. That was my kind of big
Wow.
pushback. Yeah. And it was a long conversation. We had a lot of, arguments about it. But eventually we got to the point. But effectively the way I got there and the way that, I got really involved in startups, like kind of going from doing my own thing to learning about this community of entrepreneurs just like myself, was a fund called 1517. So I had done a hackathon at KU, the University of Kansas, for the uninitiated. They run these hackathons every year in April. So I actually snuck in. So I was actually a senior in high school, but it was a college level hackathon, and they didn't allow anybody underage to join. So me and a group of friends actually did that. So there's 3 of us there. We ended up going in April of 2022, ended up winning the hackathon, getting a Most Promising Startup Award administered by a fund called 1517. So that fund kind of gave us a prize, and they gave us tickets to go out and fly out to Silicon Valley to one of the events they were hosting. So I had got the invite for that in summer of that year. So I had gone out just like, basically the summer before college for me, it would have been. And I was still planning on going to college. And then I went to that event, met hundreds of entrepreneurs, and these are hard hitters. Like that fund was actually the first check in Loom, which they sold for $800 million last year.
Wow.
Figma as well, Dylan Field.
Yes,
they're huge.
Yeah.
I met Dylan Field in person actually during that time.
Wow.
So it was an incredible experience for me, and they're big backers.
Shoot. That's right.
Yeah. So learned a lot there, and as soon as I saw it, I fell in love with it. I was like, this is where I need to be. Being in college, kind of learning the things to do the thing is not my goal, right? It's about I already have the knowledge, and how can I learn that knowledge on the fly while working a job or doing whatever. To kind of get to the point where you have the skills that you would have out of college. So that was my end goal there. I started a startup there for about 8 months. It didn't really go anywhere. It was kind of something I was playing with. And then we're in 2023 now. And now I was kind of like really obsessed with crypto. This is when I was like really big into it. Went to a conference in Denver called ETH Denver. Maybe you've heard of it before. It's very popular. It's like anybody in Ethereum knows about that conference. That kind of kicks off a series of events that ends up getting me an interview at Sphere Labs. Basically a friend kind of was like, I know this great guy that's looking for a job right now. And he connects me with them. He was actually he was working on the venture capital fund, and they were investors in Sphere. So he had kind of just mentioned like offhand that maybe, you could put in a resume there, maybe they would be interested. And luckily, March of 2023, I kind of get into the, program, work remote for a bit, and then, they're ready to move forward and they want me in New York. So then, I answered the call in May, and then I fly out for the summer. So yeah, it was 4 of us in a tiny little 1-bedroom apartment and a little bit near Hell's Kitchen. So like you have Columbia University up here. So we're a little north of that, about 10-minute walk from Columbia. The 2 founders were actually both grad students at Columbia, raised a couple $1 million for Sphere the year prior. And then I was one of the first engineers there. But yeah, so that's kind of the journey.
So it's really intriguing to me that you said that you snuck into a hackathon. Like kids your age are sneaking into concerts and parties. You're sneaking in.
It's really funny you bring that up because I actually skipped my prom to go to the hackathon.
Okay, you on a whole different level. That's reverse.
Yeah. Typically it's the opposite you hear.
Wow. Okay, so you left prom to go to make some money, which is a better deal, honestly. So did you ever go back to prom or no?
No, I didn't. I skipped it and didn't even look back.
Wow. Okay, so now tell me, going into working for a startup, before we even get there, what was the conversation? Give me a deep dive of conversation with you and your parents saying, hey, I'm just graduating high school, but I'm going to go to Silicon Valley and work for this company and do Ethereum. What was that like, and how did they actually come? You know what? We'll let you do that.
Yeah. No, that was it was not just one conversation for sure. It was a series of conversations over the entire summer where pretty much what they were worried about is they just don't want me to be unproductive, right? If I'm putting my mind to something and actually giving my full effort, then they're okay with it, right? And, I'm very thankful and, blessed to be in a position that we're at today where company's doing well, we're doing pretty well. And, generally it makes sense, like that sacrifice initially, right? Not going to college. And even sometimes to myself as well, like, this path is not a path everybody should take, right? You do miss out on experiences by being in college, but at the same time, the 15,000 experiences that I've gotten as a result of flying to SF, being in the Bay Area, going to Japan, all these other experiences, I wouldn't have never had if I went to college. So I'd say it's like, it's not for everybody, but it's for a certain type of person. I guess going more granular into the conversations, it was very much kind of like just getting them on the same eye level as me, right? Like that college is not the only way. There are people that have gone out of college and been wildly successful by not doing that. And I think it was just them seeing me work and them seeing how much time and dedication I put into what I was doing was really that inciting factor, because I myself was not a great student. So I think, that had kind of already set me up for the right path because of the fact that I was learning my own programming languages. I was learning my own frameworks and development experience. So that kind of already has let the groundwork of kind of what I was doing. But yeah.
So I think it's very, I don't, maybe 80% of entrepreneurs who've come on this show has said the same thing. You know what? I wasn't really good in school, but I was something else that I was fascinated about. And I think that's a unique thing with entrepreneurs, because most times you are focused on something that is not in the parameters of what school can give you,
right?
Which is not, kids get depressed because of that, because they feel like I'm stuck in this system and I don't see a way out, right?
Yeah. I think that's actually a really interesting point you brought up, especially in Blue Valley. It's something like 90% of people graduate and go straight to college for Blue Valley, but the graduation rates after they go to college are pretty bad, based on what I heard. I don't have a specific statistic to cite on me right now, but I heard it was in the half range. Like, so 90% go to college and only 50% graduate from college and spend the whole 4 years. So that in itself is already kind of telling as it is, where there's so much pressure in the area that we live in to go to college and do this. And I'm probably one of the only people out of my entire senior class that did this specific thing. I know a lot of people that have ended up, just kind of going down a different direction, and nothing wrong with that. It's just that it doesn't really happen that much in this area that I grew up in. So it is very interesting. And I guess kind of, I actually wrote an article about this called Through the Trawl right now, about, raising capital and some other things that we're doing right now. But overall, yes, it's been a very interesting journey, I would say.
So what got you interested in tech stuff? What intrigued you at a young age to say, I want to pursue this at a full-time level, I want to go into it? How did that start?
Yeah, so I guess my parents are always an inspiration for what I do. I would say that seeing them being in IT and being able to have such a good work-life balance growing up. You hear folks that are doing mechanics, or and God bless those blue-collar people that are spending the time and energy, because we need.
I can't do nothing but go ahead.
And these giving them the opportunity, the lifeline to get out of India and get over to the U.S. That we're extremely blessed to be in the position that we are. And I think every single day I always think back to like how IT has unlocked this entirely new industry that didn't exist, right? If you ask somebody 30 years ago what industry would be big, they would probably say something like, oh, maybe computers maybe might be big, or like they would be thinking of steel or some other very low down industry. And tech has created trillions of dollars of value, right? And you look at AI right now, right? Like these things are all around us, and being able to have that as like a lifeline was important to us. And I think that's kind of how I got into technology. I would say like for me at least, it was very much like a bit of a different strategy. Like that's the high level, and the low level was getting into sneakers and getting into these marketplaces where people were making hundreds of thousands of dollars online. And I was like, I want to know that action. How can I get involved there? And a lot of the peers that I grew up with are now starting their own startups. I can think of two off the top of my head. WAP, which they just did they're valued at $800 million. I tried interning for them when I was 16, actually. But unfortunately, I had to move to New York, so I really couldn't do that. And then another company, Slash, they just did their Series B at a $410 million valuation. So, a lot of peers that were in that same industry as me that are now going and doing even bigger things. So a lot of people to look up to for sure.
So let me ask you this. I think I want to find out, I guess, if your hustle, your startups, your coding wasn't successful, would you still be able to do it? Or was it because it worked out so well that you put a lot of effort into it?
So are you saying like if
you went into it and it didn't go out the way you wanted it to go, what would you have done? I mean, now we're in a whole different conversation.
That's a great question. That's a good question. Even I think about this myself sometimes. I think for me, it would always be, I would find something else, right? At the end of the day, I have a set of skills that I've learned over the course of the last couple of years. And I would say even more important than the skills, it's knowing the right people, right? The fact that I got my Sphere job was not purely because I was talented. I know people 10 times as talented, but are still struggling to find jobs. And the reason why is because they don't have the network. And for me, luckily early on, even when I was younger, I went to a lot of conferences, did a ton of in-person networking, stayed up to date on the latest technology and trends. I think those two things are probably the most important thing, especially for a lot of the CS majors that may or may not be tuning into this. It's really hard to get a new job right now, and largely because it just, the market's not in a great spot when it comes to that. And as AI is kind of onsetting and kind of pushing the preference for more senior people to join in, it's very hard to find people that are willing to recruit entry level hiring in right now. And I feel like it's a relic of a bygone era, to be honest. But yeah.
So in your perspective, now you're on the other side, you are pretty much on the startup, you are probably hiring people on your team. What would you give as advice for people who are either in college or trying to get into college, of like, hey, this industry feels like it's saturated.
Yeah.
What gives people an edge that you're looking at from people?
Yeah, it's a great question. I would say right now it's passion, purely passion. The second I get on a call with you, I can tell if you have passion or not. And the way I can tell is if you're really in it, you're learning new technology. In fact, actually, let me tell you a quick story as well. So when I had actually applied for Sphere, they were working in a different language than what I'd ever used before. I had never used that language. I learned that language during the technical coding interview. And to this day, if I ask the CEO of the company, he says that's the best coding assignment they've ever gotten, like as a take-home assignment. And the reason why was that I was passionate enough to learn about the language while I was doing this and understanding it. Of course, that's not, a story that everybody, that's not a shared experience that everybody's going to have. But at the same time, that I don't say that to kind of embellish myself. I say that just as a result where if you're passionate about learning new things, you'll find a way to succeed. That's my point, right? Where it doesn't matter if, the job market is bad or this. The people that I see are the ones that are winning right now are the ones that can have candor, as in they can quickly switch and do something else entirely different. That can mean switching programming language. That could mean switching like your entire job profile, like what you do as a person. But yeah, that's what I've seen being successful.
Are there tools you've used or resources you've used for you to be able to kind of shift your mindset and learn new things? Or what is there a go-to for you? I mean, I know we all know ChatGPT is there to like ask anything you want, but is there something else you use to help you either get new inspiration or motivated or kind of like shift your track?
So I'll say two things about this. I guess the first thing is that a lot of people will say YouTube is great. YouTube is great. I kind of call this like I guess I'm on the anti-YouTube side. The reason why is that I feel like a lot of people, they'll stick to these tutorials, follow the tutorials to a T, but not come away learning anything. The best thing in my opinion is, one, I would say coming up with some sort of idea. It doesn't have to be a startup. It can be some basic, I'm going to build a schedule builder. I'm going to build a meeting link booking service, kind of like Calendly, right? Just some basic application. And then figuring out what are the latent steps to get to that point, right? What do I need to do for the back end? What do I do need the front end? What do I need to do to get auth up, right? What do I need to do to get all these little latent pieces up together to build a full product? I would say just jumping right into it is probably a smarter strategy than 90% of the time. Unless it's something extremely pithy, like something very math related, or like you're doing, you're training some AI, that's a little harder to do from scratch. Whereas if you're building something from scratch, chances are you can use ChatGPT whenever you get stuck and have it build like certain things that you would need to help yourself with. And then I guess the third thing I'll also kind of just shoehorn in there is that Twitter, I think, is a really good resource for a lot of people, especially tech Twitter. As you can imagine, tech and Twitter, I mean, they're kind of hand in hand. Without tech, there wouldn't be Twitter, and without Twitter, there wouldn't be tech. So I feel like finding the right community is really important too. And this is not just a Twitter thing. This is in general. Finding the right community of people to keep you motivated, I think, is super important. Whether that's just a group of friends, whether that's, you join a Discord server, right? Some place where you're surrounded by like-minded people, I think is so important. And I think is half the reason I'm in the place that I am today. But yeah.
Let's talk about how you kind of scaled your company so fast, right? And you kind of, I think you kind of, talked about it where if you want to build something, start with the goal in mind and then walk towards that.
Yes.
So for you, for Cybership, starting this company, what was the goal in mind and how did you incrementally increase and scale into, I would say, success? So how did you get to that? What do you want to solve? And then how did...
Yeah, that's a great question. So I guess I didn't talk about the story of Cybership and how we actually got there. I kind of talked about the career, but I guess super quickly kind of dumbing it down and making it as straightforward as possible. So I had worked for Sphere for a couple months. It was about almost 6 months, so half a year. And I enjoyed my time there, but I felt a need to be more generalistic. I had been basically working as one thing, right? You're just a programmer. You're just going to be doing this all day long. And sure, you work in different parts of the code base, doing different things, but I had not really done more than just that. So for me, I got an inkling to kind of I want to do my own thing. And also, it's also kind of a risk thing where I feel like founding engineers are always kind of in this weird spot where they're getting okay cash and okay equity, but they're not getting both that are great. You're not getting great cash and no, it's kind of like a sort of risk averseness. So as a result, I was kind of already thinking about leaving and kind of starting my own thing. And that had been Cybership. And I guess the inciting event that had led to Cybership was I had a friend his name is Sebastian. He's one of the founders of a company called Agriful. He was complaining on Twitter about how much he hates his fulfillment partner, the person that ships and picks and packs the items that ship to customers, because he doesn't do that himself. And he was complaining so much about that. So then I was a fan of his energy drink. He runs an energy drink company. And I had just kind of talked to him on Twitter and in DMs a little bit about it. And then he tweeted like, I'm looking for a new 3PL. Anybody have recommendations? And instantly I was like, 3PL, I wonder what that term means. So then I started looking into it, doing research. I literally had Googled that night, what is a 3PL on Google? And then I'd found out like, oh, it's the same thing I used to do when I sold sneakers, right? Picking and packing and shipping orders out the door. So then as a result, I was like, I also had a warehouse at the time just for storing all the sneakers and other random junk that I had when I moved out. So as a result, I was like, why don't I just start a 3PL for, Sebastian? He does enough volume where I could, spend an entire day picking and packing and shipping orders. So why don't I do that for him? So I pitched him the idea. He ended up being our first customer. This is like end of 2023. I had let go of some pretty good opportunities then as well. I was interviewing at NVIDIA, SpaceX, and some other companies at the time. But I'd said no to everything to go all in on this crazy idea. And really our goal was very simple. I mean, we can talk about money. We can talk about all these things. My goal was very simple. Deliver brands a better experience than what they're getting today. That's it. So if the brand is coming to me and they're complaining about, I don't want to sit here for hours and hours on end, picking and packing, putting a box down and then putting the item in the box, and you're effectively outsourcing yourself for $17, $22 an hour because you're saying that, me being here, I'm not creating value for my brand right now. I'm sitting here picking and packing orders rather than marketing or contacting retailers to buy my product. I'm sitting here picking and packing orders. And as a founding team that's running lean, it's just not, it doesn't make sense for most companies to do that. You're basically just a, person that's picking and packing orders for no reason at all. And, I guess like that's kind of where our model comes in, where we take that load off, where people ship items to us, we do all the hard work, and then then the consumers are happy, we're happy, the brand's happy, and typically they save money with us as well, even compared to just shipping and picking and packing things themselves. So that was one part of the kind of experience. And the second part is the software. The software industry is absolute, very bad.
You would think it should not be this bad.
Right. You would think so. And then you go to warehouse and you're literally seeing a terminal that looks like it's from 2001. And the thing is, it is from 2001. So,
but yes.
Yeah, exactly. So the majority of these warehouses are operating the same way and they're not using the features. In fact, we just demoed a warehouse a couple of weeks ago and they were shocked. We were literally had our mouths like this with how inefficient the experience was of them picking and packing one order. They're spending 10, 20 minutes entering information at a computer, whereas we don't do any of that. We have a system that fully brings in all that data into one spot, and it's just treated like any other order, like a domestic order for anything international. So that's exactly how I guess we think about it and how we streamline our operation for efficiency first, because we wouldn't be able to make money if we didn't have it, set it up the way we did. And I guess like that's kind of the software thing is like kind of the second piece of secret sauce that we've integrated in our system. And then the journey for growing and kind of scaling for us was that so we had started in December, they had continued selling the product all throughout January. January of that year, we had signed a new warehouse because we had run out of space. We literally there wasn't enough space for us to keep the product. So as a result, we signed on a 3,000 square foot building in Olathe, Kansas. It was, it was a nice building. I enjoyed it for a bit. It got really hot in the summer though. It was like a furnace. So we onboarded the brand Phase It. They're like our best customer. I love the founders. They're very easy to talk to, very easy to work with. And, we've helped them a lot and they've helped us a lot. So it's been a very mutual relationship where we've all had value from that. So they basically called us and they were like, this is April of 2024. So their brand, they had released in April, instant success. They were doing 3,000-4,000 orders a month in April alone. And then they had come to us in May and they were like, oh my gosh, we can't handle this anymore. We need to grow the brand, but we can't be focusing on picking and packing items, as you'd imagine, right? Thinking about it more logically, they're shipping almost 300 items a day. So you're sitting here literally picking and packing items. It's so inefficient, right? And thinking about it from founders where you guys are viral on TikTok, you guys are viral on Instagram, but you're sitting here picking and packing orders. That can't be a good way to spend your time. So they had started looking for solutions in early May of that month. And I had basically one call with them. And then 2 days later, we signed the agreement and they started working with us. They kind of, I guess, saw the fire in us and to deliver brands a really good experience. And, we did what we had to do. And that whole summer, they continued ripping through it. We were talking tens of thousands of orders a month. Was their peak in that kind of area, I guess. And then when we talked about going into the winter, we were like, okay, things are going to slow down. And then, Black Friday, Cyber Monday, they're going to go up a lot and then come back down, right? And then all of a sudden October came by. And then that was the inciting event to the rest of this. So at the time, we actually moved warehouses one more time after that because we grew out of that other facility. In fact, actually, one quick story I'll say is that we actually had 2 shipping containers, the giant shipping containers, dropped outside of our facility, and the landlords were not happy. But we had to do what we had to do to keep our inventory. We got to do what we got to do. And they were not happy about it, but, we ended up, keeping that building. Actually, we have a subtenant that's renting that building out. But I guess going back to the current thing, we actually moved to underground to the Maritex complex in Lenexa. So we got a 6,000 square foot building there that we use now, or we did use, and now we moved to 12,000 square feet one more time at the end of the year. But either way, I guess the main inciting thing that, I guess everybody's tuning in for, so the Taylor Swift thing. So the way that happened was actually, I guess, giving you a play-by-play of how that happened was we were already growing, like volume was doing great. There were 7,000, 8,000, I think probably even a little bit more orders per month at that time. And then all of a sudden, at 7 o'clock, I was watching a Chiefs game with my dad. And then all of a sudden, I'm like, wait, Taylor Swift, is she wearing what I think she's wearing? And then all of a sudden, I get a call at 7 o'clock at night. I pick up. It's the founder of Phase It. And she said, she just wore a product on live TV. Get ready. And then she hung up. And I was like, oh, shit.
Oh, dang. It's about to go down.
It's about to go down. And then, so everything from then to the next, I don't even know how many days this happened for because I don't even remember. It was that much of a blur for me. I had made 2 calls, one to my co-founder, Jack, which basically like for the, long and short, incredibly gifted engineer from Amazon, very similar to myself. He ran Minecraft servers when he was 13 and 14, making $2 to $3 grand a month at that age. He ended up getting his first job at AMC Theaters while still in high school, making over 6 figures. And then most recently, he was one of the youngest engineers in Amazon at 19. And he actually just recently left Amazon to come and work full time for Cybership earlier this year. But yeah, so extremely gifted engineer.
Yes.
Yeah.
Wow.
And we actually met at the hackathon too. So
Wow. Okay. So talk a little bit about what was that like? So you have a package in place.
sure, yeah.
So you guys are packaging. How many people do you have working with you on a regular basis before that? And what happened when you got that Taylor Swift?
Yeah. So typically at the time we were at about 10 employees, and that was largely because we also had other clients too. It was not just them. We had 6 or 7 clients we onboarded during that summer alone. Dog food, makeup, energy shots, small little shots of energy drink, kind of like a 5-hour energy sort of thing. So we had done a lot of different things at that time. So we scaled up the team. Actually, there was one weekend I remember where I hired 5 people. So that was the craziest weekend. That was before the Taylor Swift thing. The Taylor Swift was even worse. So Taylor Swift day comes. As I kind of said earlier, I called my co-founder Jack. He already knew about this. He saw his mom was making fun of him. He was like, is that what you guys are fulfilling orders for? And then I called my other person, which thank God I had this meeting like literally 2 weeks prior to this. I had a meeting with one of the temporary crew people that like kind of give temp labor to the folks there. They're called Premier Packaging. They're based in the same complex that we were based in. So I already had a conversation with them. And then so in terms of total amount of people, we had 28 people coming.
Wow.
Including me. Everybody was picking and packing. It doesn't matter if you're technology or anything. And then the secondary thing I'll also mention too is that we had our own technology to connect from, a sales channel, right? So like a Shopify, WooCommerce, whatever you sell products on. So we connected from Phase's Shopify store into our WMS, warehouse management system. So we handle everything, orders, inventory, customers, everything. So as a result, our system was at the peak processing 6.4 million events per hour at the peak of that event. So we had to go in at 3 a.m. to the warehouse and fix the system because it was breaking, because it was that fast. We actually,
Give us perspective. 6.1 million activity. Give to a layman. Break that down so they understand what that number means.
Yeah. So 6.4 million events means that 6.4 million are, different ways of interacting. So that's orders updating, orders coming in, orders getting updated, people canceling orders, people visiting the website, all sorts of different things. So we were processing all this event data and we're like, our database went, it was like a hockey stick. And then, I don't know if you've used Shopify at all, but they had this sick tool where you can see a world and so you can see all the orders coming in. So you can see where people order from and there's like a little blip that goes from you to that person. So we had this view pulled up on a giant screen and we were just sitting there like, holy shit.
Did y'all document this?
Oh, we kind of did. We documented a little bit of this. I wish we had a crew like you guys to document that because that would have been a movie.
That would have been a movie.
Oh, man.
What?
Yeah, it was nuts.
6.1 million?
6.4 million.
4 million?
6.4, yeah.
Wow.
So that many individual actions were happening on their website at that time, which is unheard of. Like ridiculous.
Wow.
And and then the weeks after that, the days after, I guess we'll start there, was just obscene. Like, we're processing hundreds of thousands of orders every single half an hour. So every single time that we were coming in, and think about it, right? it's not just the event. It's the people that hear about the event after the event happens and they're ordering stuff too, right? So there's levels to it, right? Where you have all these different things kind of cascading. Media is through the roof. Everybody's talking about them. Everybody was. For context, that year they had projected their revenue to be around $3 million. They had changed it to 10 million over that year. And this year, 40 million.
Wow.
So
rapid growth.
Yeah, insane growth, ridiculous growth, in fact. And just literally like last week, and I'll tell you this kind of down on the down low, they're going to be in every single Walmart here in a couple weeks.
Wow.
We just shipped out 42 different trucks for them, actually, just the other day.
42 different trucks.
Yeah, that are all going to 42 different distribution centers, and they're going to build the little display stands that they use in Walmart. And yeah, you'll see it in a bit here. So I'll show you. We'll go to Walmart.
Yes. So let me ask this. I think this is mind blowing. But how do you set up a system that can be able to withstand like immense growth? Like how did you structure yourself in a way where I know you have to move fast, but you have to move fast and you have not crashed yet?
Yeah. No, that's
still
a
moving.
great question.
How do you? Two questions.
Yeah.
How do you create systems that can take you through the highest peak and maintain a consistent level even when the highest peak is done?
Yeah. That's a great question. So for us, it's all about flexibility and people, I would say. We kind of call it people's process technology. Those are the three kind of PPT, whatever you want to call it. So for us, technology is sort of solved, where we built the technology in-house, and now we're turning that into a separate product, which we'll talk about a little later. But overall, that's one part of it. Many companies don't even have that figured out. I would say the vast variety of companies that do the same thing that we do don't have that figured out. And the thing is that they're not technology minded the way that we are, where we work for companies that were processing, Sphere actually right now is processing like $1 billion a year in payment volume. And, obviously Amazon, I don't even need to mention Amazon. You know how big Amazon is. So being and working in those kind of communities where you're building these scalable, highly available systems, we call them redundancy, right? You have to have that. In fact, when we talk about Amazon, their level is, they call it 11 nines, 99.999 for 9 nines they have as an availability benchmark. And that means there's basically I think 3 or 4 seconds of downtime every year that's their own benchmark, which is just ridiculous, right? So every year that system's so big, you have 3 seconds that goes down for.
3 seconds every year.
Every year.
Wow.
Yeah. So that's the benchmark. That's what they hold their systems to.
That's right.
Because think about it, every minute that they're losing hundreds of millions of dollars.
Yes.
The experiments that Jack was doing at Amazon, the typical ROI for it would be, sometimes minus 60 million or positive 120 million, right?
Yeah.
He worked on the carousels team, right? So that's the team that works on the suggested for you, kind of like the little thing where at the bottom where it suggests. So that's a really big lift. So he worked on a team with only about 5 or 6 other people, and they're managing that one tool that generates it. And at a company as big as Amazon, those small changes, they change so much when it comes to consumer experience and also revenue as well.
That is fascinating. So let me ask you this. Let's bring it to KC.
Sure.
Why Kansas City and not go to New York? Or are you planning on leaving us in New York? Why stay in KC? Why do this here? What is the importance of that? What's the why?
Great question. So when it comes to Kansas City, one, I grew up here. So, being close to home is really important for me. And also generally speaking, the people that I've got involved in the operation, if I had gone to New York, New Jersey, wherever, California even, I wouldn't have recruited the same. I was in a position where I was able to hire my high school friend out of, high school to be our, current manager for the warehouse and everything, right? And the only way I was going to be able to trust someone with my baby, the thing that I had, literally blood, sweat, and tears for, over the course of the last couple of years, was only somebody I would trust, right? There's no other person that I would headhunt to go and run the warehouse, and, good luck, right? That was one part of it. And the secondary thing is just for logistics in general, being central is super important. So for us, we have the same delivery time to New York as to California, right? So that's super important too. So it just ended up kind of working out really well, where Kansas City was kind of the mix of both, one part luck and one part hard work. And I would say the secondary thing that's keeping us here is that just generally, the people here are different, right? It's just, you have that mentality, right? I can even tell you an example. When you go to Bay Area, California, holding doors for people is really weird. Nobody really does stuff like that. Yeah, and coming here, it's just seeing that return to form for me that I grew up with, where you hold the door for the person behind you, and you greet people, and you're cordial with your neighbors. That doesn't really exist in other areas. I don't think a lot of people really have internalized this belief that when you go to New York, man, nobody cares about you on the road. You just keep walking. You keep walking. There's somebody that's some homeless guy going crazy in the background, or some guy screaming about the end of the world. You just keep walking.
The funny thing about holding doors is the worst part about holding doors is when I'm too far away and they hold the door.
Right.
No, I gotta run. I didn't gonna run today.
That's what I'm saying, right?
You just keep going. What it happens. That's how nice people are. They'll wait for you.
They'll wait for you
to get there. But then I'm like, I'm coming.
Or it's the other one is when there's a group of people walking in and you're like, I don't know if somebody's gonna take over from me. I'm sitting here and holding the door.
Thank you.
Yeah, exactly.
Is it you? No, thank you.
Is you please take over somebody.
You're there like the whole time.
You're like the doorman at that point.
At that point, it's just tip you. But that's how nice Casey is. I think you hit it spot on. Like Kansas City, the people in Casey are really nice.
Yes.
Like most times it's funny because most times people ask you, so how you doing? And they really mean that. And like they will tell you. And I'm like, oh, hold up, wait a minute. Okay, we actually talking.
Yeah.
We're not, areas, because like what I've learned in different areas, like you ask and keep walking, but most of the time we just stand and actually chat with you.
Yeah.
So I think that's the difference. And also
like you can approach a stranger here and have a genuine conversation with them. Whereas in New York, you're getting 15 people to like, that's not going to happen. Like nobody's stopping for anybody. It reminds me of this one guy, Tracks NYC, is like a gold dealer or something in New York. And he's literally like giving away gold and nobody's paying attention to him. Right. And they're just walking straight past him. It's just like, oh my gosh, like, yeah. And I guess like another fun thing about the Midwest as well, Midwestern goodbyes. I don't know if you ever heard of that expression. But basically it's when, you're leaving somewhere and you end up just continually talking for like hours. So it's like, you're like, I'm leaving. And then you're like outside on the doorstep. It's like freezing outside. And you're like, still like, oh yeah, we're talking about this and we got to go to this. And it's like, oh my God, man, that happens all the time.
I didn't know that was a thing, but the amount of times I've been outside for like 40 minutes and just talking like, yo, we could just stay inside if we knew we were going to stand outside the door. Why are we on the sun right now? Because I love this conversation, but we could have done this inside.
Exactly. The Midwestern, that's what we call the Midwestern goodbye. Because other places, done and done. They're done and done, right? And then here it's like, we have a 40-minute conversation about leaving.
That's right, about leaving, and then we're still there. I dabbed him up. Oh, by the way. Oh,
I forgot about this. Oh yeah, it's like, how's the weather? Oh yeah, are you sure you don't want to stay? Like, and then it just goes on and on and on.
So tell me this, from being a startup founder and being in Kansas City, what do you think is missing or could help other founders or younger founders who want to get in this space? Like you, I feel like your network from being in high school to go into Silicon Valley helped your trajectory so fast that most entrepreneurs, we want to get in that industry. In case you don't get that, what do you think is missing and what could be done to better, improve the success rate or experience?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think it's really a couple of things. I think just generally the focus on college not being the end all be all. That's one of them, right? If people are going to go to college, waste time, money, and effort in a system that they're not going to like to begin with, we need to offer those opportunities before they go to college, right? Look at how Germany operates. Their whole system of education is based on a completely different paradigm where in high school, they're getting work experience. And effectively, you're taking a test that sets your entire career off. And as a result, just the amount of satisfaction in jobs is exponentially higher than it is here in the US. And that's one thing I think we can take away from how we approach education in general. I'd say education in general in Blue Valley is great. Nothing is wrong with it inherently. But I would say it's more of a broken system around education where and CAPS does a really good job at this, at least that they're starting, right? That they're allowing opportunities for people to get exposure to technology or working with a company or working towards building their own problems in a kind of very hands-off environment, right? That's really important because at the end of the day, individuals need to be successful on their own, right? You can push somebody as much as you want, but they're not going to be successful. They need to find something they really enjoy doing. And for me, even if I wasn't doing startups in general and was just doing my own thing or like working for another company, if I have that same environment, then I think would be very, successful and still very, passionate about what I was doing rather than just purely being in a startup and only startups ever, forever and ever and ever.
That's right. You know what's funny? I make this joke that the only thing I got from college was an extension cord that I used to tell my company. So long extension cord. So I did finance. I'm not doing anything about finance right now.
Okay.
But they give me an extension cord for my show and I still use it. So that was the only thing I got from college.
There we go.
I got something from college. But to your point though, I think there is value in being able to have trying out a skill set because I think the hardest thing in college is most times you're pretty much trying to figure things out. And because you don't have a skill set before even entering college, now you're using college time to figure things out as opposed to focusing on what you really need to be going into. So I think there's a huge value that needs to be restructured on how people learn things.
Yes, exactly.
Because all these electives and things you take are just distractions to what you actually do.
Yeah. It's like when you go to college, right? CS should be a 2-year-long course. There's this gen eds and this other stuff that's pointlessly shoehorned to increase revenue for colleges. Most things you can learn in about 2 years. I mean, obviously med school, that's completely different. We're not talking about that, right? Engineer, yeah, exactly. But for most intensive things, like you don't need to have that level of research for 4 years. And when I talk to my peers that have gone to college and have done those things, they're telling me all the time about like pointless courses they took just to fill a requirement, right? why is our system like this? Why is it like this? And purely because capitalism and because colleges need to make money. That's clearly what's kind of going on here. And, people can say, oh, it makes you well-rounded. It does X, Y, and Z. I'm paying you guys money to educate me. So why don't you guys educate me in the proper ways that I need to rather than focusing on that? And also, I guess, to your point about, giving time to figure things out, why doesn't that happen in high school, right? High school should be a time of learning and understanding that, right? And I feel like we kind of chronically underestimate how much agency a lot of these high schoolers have, right? I feel like there's high schoolers doing incredible things that you never hear about as a result of the fact that they never had the opportunity to show off what they're doing, right? So I think that there's really something to be said about giving enablement to high schoolers to be able to be more exploratory in what they're learning. I think Blue Valley does an exceptional job at that, and I commend them for all the work that they've done in that specifics, there. Outside of that, I mean, I think there's still a lot to do. I mean, there's always work to be done, and just generally giving young people the opportunity to expand their own horizons on, do I want to go to med school? Do I want to do this? Do I want to do engineering? And giving them opportunities to experiment with those primitives in high school itself would be incredibly powerful, I would say.
So, and I know that I would say you're pretty much a resource yourself, right? But are there any, or let's start with being in Launch KC. How has that been for you? What is the value? Why did you apply for Launch KC? And, what's the reason why you were part of that program? Well, how's that been for you?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I actually heard about it very late. I heard about it from a very good friend of mine, Liam Riley, over at KC Rise Fund. He's, I'm sure other people have talked about him as well on the show. He's an incredibly good, great person and a really good resource here in Kansas City. So he mentioned the program randomly offhand one day when we were having an email exchange about some new customers or something. And I was like, oh, this program seems interesting. I go to the website, check it out. I'm like, I wonder if I can talk to somebody about this. So I talked to Jim Erickson, one of the, you've met Jim before, and a lot of these folks have. And, he kind of gave me the rundown of what the program's about, kind of very basic stuff. I was like, okay, this is really interesting because I look at the program and there's like, Super Dispatch. There's some very big companies coming out of Launch KC. And then more deeply, and I'm like, I'm going to be in KC for a while. So the math for me is very easy, where it's like, I'm going to be in KC for probably the next year or two at the minimum, if not longer. So that's one part of it. So that requirement, easy. It's dilution free, as in you're not giving equity away to anybody. The state is literally giving you free money effectively to do this. That's another thing. And then the third and most important, the network and connections you get as a result of the program, right? Opportunities like this, the ability to come on and say your story and talk to people, and then the Launch KC Liftoff event. These are all very, very big events that gives you and kind of pushes you to the forefront of what's going on in the community. And especially if you're focused on building a community here in Kansas City, it's an invaluable resource that you can have. And I fully believe that kind of me going through the Launch KC has changed the way I look at things, the things I've learned from the people that they bring in to kind of talk to the team. Just the vast variety of people you meet, I think is super important. Whether it's Kevin, whether it's, whoever it is, you meet very interesting people that also add a lot of value to yourself as a person. Because going through the startup journey is extremely hard. It's not easy. It's the narrow path for sure. And there have been times where I'm like, I want to fucking break down and be like, oh man, this is like, I can't do this anymore. But I've always had somebody in my corner, and that's either Launch KC, it's either my co-founder or somebody else, right? And I feel like building a community around that is kind of what Kansas City is missing, where having a community of like-minded people that are doing fun events, whether it's like, pickleball or tennis or whatever, right? Just something to get everybody on the same page and something to get people outside of their rooms and their offices. I think it's really, something that I would like to do. And I have a friend actually that's kind of working on that idea right now. So we'll see how that plays out. But overall, like, I think there's just kind of a big void and a gap where there should be a lot more young people, and that gap is just missing. And they're all going to college and they're returning back and working regular corporate jobs. And there's nobody kind of saying, what if we go this way? What if we go a different way, right? And as a result, the growth of the city is very dependent on that, right? Startups are the growth of the city. Without companies trying to challenge new ideas and do new things, there would be no net new ideas, and the companies that already exist would just get continually inefficient as they are. Without anybody here to innovate, there's just no innovation, and you don't have companies like, look at how Silicon Valley grew, right? AI, look at how much money is flowing to Silicon Valley. Silicon Valley created trillions of dollars of value. And the reason that they've captured and made it is they've made it a mecca for tech people, right? They've made it a place, the culture, the people, and just the environment itself is this breeding ground for innovation. And we need to figure out a way to bring that to Kansas. That doesn't necessarily need to be technology. It can be manufacturing. There's a variety of different places it could be, right? And we need to figure out what that is for ourselves. Because without that, the city's not going anywhere. And that's exactly kind of what we're missing right now, in my opinion, at least.
And I mean, I always say this on the show, you got to follow the money. Where's the money going? I think if money's on the table, we can create that in KC. But I want to ask, also, put me in contact with your guy who's trying to create that place for new entrepreneurs, new startups. I think there needs to be a culture of that. I think the reason why this show exists is because we want to be able to bring young entrepreneurs, old entrepreneurs,
Right.
people who've been building it.
It doesn't matter what kind of thing they're doing.
It doesn't matter what section you're in. It's all about innovative ideas and people who are creating a culture of, yo, I want to go get it.
Yep.
I don't want to sit and wait for it. Like I need to go out there, right? And I think Casey needs to wake up to that.
Yeah.
It's like, yo, we are the next thing.
Exactly.
But I mean, I guess, again, the Casey, the Midwesterners of holding doors is like, I'm going to just chill and wait for it.
See, that's the thing as well. That's actually a great point that you touched on, where Midwestern people are a little risk averse, right? Whether it's like in jobs, whether it's anything in general, right? I have friends that have gone to way better colleges, but they still choose to stay here. And there's nothing against them. Like maybe it makes sense for them, or maybe they got a better financial package. So, that's obviously not a, all the time picture.
Yes.
But for the most intensive purposes, people here are chronically choosing opportunities where they're not taking a risk, right? And it's not for everybody, which is fine. But at the same time, I feel like there should be more people that are willing to take more of a risk, where as long as you got a roof over your head and you got food to eat, you should be able to take a risk when you're younger as well. And in fact, it's good to take risks. There have been economic studies done. There's been hundreds of studies reinforcing the same belief that taking risks when you're younger is patently a good thing. Does that mean go out and do drugs? Of course not. But does that mean take calculated risk where there's return on investment or return on what you're actually doing and investing in? Run out, right? So if you have an opportunity, an opportunity to do, a project in college, whether it's just start a startup with a friend, look at Facebook, right? Well, what the hell was Facebook? Literally a startup with a friend, right? Sure, it was at Harvard and all these other things, but that next Facebook can come from a similar situation here in Kansas City. I feel like, a lot of people focus on the money aspect, where that's obviously important, and that's absolutely, a very important part of it. But there is investment coming to Kansas, and there's, Panasonic, for example, Fiserv, all these companies are coming to Kansas for a reason. And as a result, what I've been more interested in is how do we bring the talent, right? We don't want to have a brain drain and have a system where people are not putting in their all in, right? Or they're leaving Kansas for better opportunities. That's the worst possible thing, because that talent needs to stay here. And without that talent staying here, then the compensation is not going to follow as well. That's probably the most important part about this entire thing that I would say, is that talent really needs to stay here. And if we continue kind of going down this route of leaving those good jobs and going to Silicon Valley or New York, like I had to do, then we're screwed.
That's right. Yeah, I think in KC, when it comes to, I always look back to the organization who are doing something different. Launch KC, Keystone, right? KC Source Link.
Yep.
I know Kaufman now is on the trend of creating this culture of entrepreneurship, culture of being able to, for the starters, for the people who are doing the work. And I think more of that needs to continue happening, because it's like the Christmas light effect. If one light dies down, it affects the rest of them.
Exactly.
Right? And if you don't hold that one light up, the rest of them start getting dimmer.
Exactly.
Right? So I think we are in a situation where, for this to become the next ecosystem happening, all elements need to be in place.
Yeah. Yep.
And like I said, talent is a huge thing, because like a lot of our talent, when they're still young, when they're still not at their potential, they have to leave. For those who are really trying to make it,
Yep.
and then they leave, and they probably never come back because they've already actualized what they need to do. But I think there needs to be a culture to cultivate on those young ones who are, before you leave, let's put you into something here so you can be able to continue.
Yeah, that reminds me of a lot of stories of, certain billion-dollar companies that were formed here in Kansas, but they leave and they never come back, right? And we're to entice them to come back, right? And if that's the kind of scenario that we're in, we've clearly done something wrong, right? And a lot of this is like stuff that we can't handle, where it's like, if they're going to LA or New York, there's not much we can do here to compete with those sorts of areas. But what can we do to keep the people that are already here, right? That's the biggest thing for me, where it's like, other than family and other than opportunity, like what are the other intangibles that Kansas City can offer to keep people here? Whether that's tax benefits, whether that's giving more open communities like this, whether it's making some city buildings into areas where entrepreneurship can thrive. What is that secret sauce that gets us there? That's been something that's been on my mind for a lot, and I've thought a lot about this problem. I haven't really come to an answer on that yet, but I've still been thinking a lot about how can we better engineer the city to foster that. I think one possibility is trying to fix the crime problem. There is quite a lot of crime in the city, and it's, not great being Kansas City, and I feel like for a lot of people, and finding ways to either stop that before it happens. And I know, KCPD has also made quite a bit of investment in that kind of problem with the new drone infrastructure and all the other various things that's happened. But I'm really hoping that kind of looks up, because without that happening, when I have friends of friends telling me that their office was broken into and they had thousands of dollars of technical equipment stolen, this happened just a couple of years ago, that's not a great sign for the city. That's not enticing for anybody, right? That's just pushing them to stay and work from home and not come to the city and make an investment here. That's exactly the kind of things that we really need to work on here as a city. And that's one thing that maybe even the mayor can help with.
No, I think for me, especially with crime and all those other things, I think it comes down to opportunities.
Yes, that's also very fair.
If there are opportunities in places where, because like in those areas where there's crime, you can see that there are no billion-dollar companies in those areas.
Absolutely.
There are no high employment in those areas. So kids are going to be kids, right? You had opportunity and connection in the area you grew up in to be able to go and network in Silicon Valley.
Yeah.
And the kids who are in that have that fire, but because there's no place to cultivate the fire, they take it to somewhere else, which is a negative place.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's a very good point. There's a great saying where it's like, idle hands are the works of the devil, or something along those lines. And I mean, it's true.
Idle hands are the devil's workshop.
Yes. There you go.
I can't forget that because my dad always told me that. Go get busy. You sitting down, but keep.
No. I mean, it's a great, like, your dad is a very wise person. You know, I'll say that piece of advice is something that I've always stuck with, where I haven't really had the idea to do anything like bad because I've been so busy with my own thing, right? So I feel like, you know, it's absolutely one thing. And I'll say also, like, you know, people that are willing to get out there and willing to make opportunity for themselves are the ones who win out of communities like that, purely speaking. Obviously, you know, I was very privileged to be growing up in the area that I was, but also was, you know, a lot of hard work as well. But, you know, as most opportunity, it's when preparation meets opportunity. And those are the two times when you're actually good. But yeah, we need to absolutely give more opportunity to these areas that are underprivileged and find ways that we can engage that population. I think what Goodwill does is very interesting as well. They have a technology program as well that they kind of do and mentor these students as well. But just finding a way to kind of see that opportunity, whether it's in the schools or the areas that they hang out in, I think is really important as well. And, you know, I have a lot of ideas of things, but, you know, unfortunately, I don't have the city funding to make those things happen.
Exactly. I think that's what I was going to say. Like, people like yourself who are at a young age, who are doing it, making 7 figures, are the ones that the city should put in positions of power to create ideations of programs that can be able to facilitate this, right?
Yeah.
So I always think of even the economy, I think of it as a startup, right?
Yeah.
Inflection points are really important, right? If opportunity again means preparation, things happen.
Exactly.
And if that doesn't happen, we are in the same place.
Yeah.
Because you can't keep, you know, you can't put, water doesn't really bring down fire.
Yep.
It makes it worse. Right? If you don't have the right tools to bring down the fire that's already happening, it's going to be the same thing, right? They say it's tendency to doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result.
Yeah.
So the city needs to strategize and see what are we not looking at, which is young people who are the ones supposed to be the future, are not doing what they're supposed to do to become the future.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So that's my 2 cents.
No, it makes sense. No, I agree 100%. I think it's very much like it's investment as well is one part of that too, because if these areas are chronically unsafe, let's just do an example. An area is unsafe, no new investments coming there, right? Nobody wants to live there. But if we increase the investment just by some small amount, and then there, you know, that problem is kind of solved as it is, now investment starts pouring in because that area becomes undervalued compared to the rest of the surrounding area, right? How can we kind of reinvigorate these economies? That's been one thing I've been thinking about a lot as well. Whether it's just creating new restaurants or new opportunities. If a restaurant is there and it's taking away business from McDonald's, great. That's a good thing. You know, now we're getting some actual proper food. We're getting some really good opportunities and also people being hired in a position where they're not going to have bad opportunities. So like these are sort of, that's a very basic thing. Like that's not technology. That's just basic economics.
That's basic economics. Yeah. I mean, it's like the best way to get a job is not by a resume, it's by who you know.
Exactly.
And people who open business are going to hire their friends, their uncles, their cousins.
Exactly.
Like, yo, I seen you on the corner street. Come get a job here, get paid.
Right.
It's the same money, right? So I think that's, you know, that's a whole city conversation.
Yeah. No, I could talk about that for a long time.
So as we're rounding up though, I wanna ask you this, because I know as a young entrepreneur, as a young founder, and you kind of talked to us about this a little bit, there are dark days where you're just in it and feel like you're stuck. How do you get out of those mental struggles of, it's just too much. There's too much happening right now. How do you get out of those areas? And what do you do? What keeps you grinding? And how do you get out of funks?
Yeah. I would say our customers are probably the number one thing where we see what happens if we screw something up, right? There's many times over the course of running this business that we screwed up in big, big ways. Luckily, every single time we've taken ownership of it and fixed the mistake. Those are the 2 things we do. And you'd be surprised how many companies that do the same thing that we do that don't do those basic 2 things, that don't take ownership and compensate for the mistake. So with us having that culture that I've kind of instilled on our staff, everybody kind of picks up the pace and, you know, it does a good job. But there are absolutely days where, you know, I'm like, I don't want to get out of bed and I'm just like, oh man, I don't want to do this. But then I think of my customers and I think of the people that I'm letting down by not doing that. And it's like, okay, well, that, and also having a co-founder, I think is super important. It's like solo funding a company is already as hard as it is. And without my co-founder, like I wouldn't have somebody to bounce back ideas for. And then he works crazier than I do. So like I work like crazy and he works like crazy. So we're both kind of in the same thing, like in the same trenches together. So there's days where I'm not, willing to do things, and there's days where he's not, and we kind of like hype each other up, and then we're able to, get the work done at the end of the day. So I think having somebody to bounce ideas back of, or even a mentor in some way, shape, or form, has been really interesting. And I think there's even great people here in Kansas City themselves that are willing to offer up time and energy and resources to at least mentor your way through and the thing is that they've done it before. They've already been the guy that sells a company for hundreds of millions of dollars. They've been the people that have actually got that done. So them kind of as inspiration, you realize that, they're the same as us. They're going to have days that they're off just like we are. And you kind of have to understand that like everybody's human, and taking a day off is not necessarily a bad idea sometimes. For me, I try to at least, like, back in the day, I used to be working all the time, 24/7. But more recently, I've been trying to at least be a bit more mindful about how the time I'm spending is, and at least spend time on the weekends with my family and kind of, do that sort of thing. Like that's been, I think, super important, at least for the work-life balance. And, some people will also have the opinion where it's like, you shouldn't have work-life balance at all. Like that shouldn't even be a word you talk to as a store. But we're all human after all, right? If you're literally getting to the point where you're becoming sick, because like that was, where I was at last year, by how much you're working, then you need to take a good hard look at yourself and make changes, because that will not last, right? What would be better? You working like crazy for 2 weeks and then burning out for 2 months? Or would you rather just kind of take it slower and spend those 2 months building that product and building that vision and building that strategy and actually having an outcome that ends up being huge, right? Like that's kind of how I think about it, right? Where it's like 1 day off, but you're not burnt out for an entire month, right? And I think this is something that me and my co-founder have both had to learn individually on how best can we spend our time and how best can we set up our schedule to be successful, rather than just pulling all-nighters every single day, because that's not healthy, right? And we've done our fair few of them as well earlier on, but now more recently it's been like, if we're up at 9, we're up at 9. We got stuff to do, man. Like I got a company to run. So it's been great there, but also having that social life and perspective as well is really good too. But.
So this might be my last 2 questions. One is, what is something, because on the last episode we were talking, and one thing that people say about entrepreneurs is like, I'm going to leave my job so I can be my own boss, so I can be able to have my own time. That's I'm glad you said, yeah, we know that's not true. That is absolutely the opposite of that, of being your own boss.
Yeah.
The complete opposite of that. You're going to work more than you ever work in life.
Yep.
But what are some misconceptions that you've heard people or, talk about entrepreneurship that you've come to find out that's not true?
Oh yeah, there's a great, I'll say from a technology perspective, because I think this is very interesting to me, at least. I feel like the people tuning into stuff like this might be more technology minded than the typical kind of populace. But what I'll say is that for me, growing up as an entrepreneur, I always thought product was number one, right? Product is the most important thing, right? Sales doesn't matter. If you have a great product, it'll sell itself. That's the complete BS. And the truth behind that, and the reason that's true, like the hypothesis and the actual like proof of that, is look at what everybody's using right now. So here in warehouse management systems in our land, right, there are several products in the industry that are 10, 20 years old. How did they get into those businesses? Because they had great sales organizations, but they didn't have a great product. So the thing is, if you're, at the end of the day, if you solve somebody's problem, they don't care about any other thing, right? It's about how they make you feel, right? So if the problems are so much of a pain for them and you solve it, you're the silver bullet to them, then great, you can charge whatever price you want. It doesn't have to look perfect. I think that's been the hardest thing for us to learn, where it's like, we want to build a great product and a great company culture around that product. But at the same time, sales and distribution is probably infinitely more important than product, right? If everybody knows about your company, then you've already solved the distribution problem. And then you can sell that to everybody, and you can have the worst product in the world, but some percentage of the people are still going to buy it because it's what's there, it's what's offered. But if nobody knows about your product and you have a best product, kind of like we are in this scenario right now, then it's kind of an inverse scenario where it's just like, oh God, like we have this great product, but nobody sells it to. What are we supposed to do? So luckily now we're kind of building a strategy of how we're going to monetize and how we're going to build this once we kind of get past our first different areas. But overall, like that's kind of my modus operandi to like how I used to think and how I think now, being a bit more mature and kind of working the space a little bit more. So that's one I would mention. But
yeah, and I think you hit it on. It's like your product is important, not the sale part of it. Because if you drive sales, let's take for example that Taylor Swift thing happened.
Yeah.
And
it could be any product.
It could be any product. And you had 20,000 people coming to your platform and you made the sales. The sales worked.
Right.
But ain't nobody can buy nothing or ship nothing from a platform.
There you go.
You crashed.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
So this is hopefully the final question. I keep asking more questions.
This is all good.
Hopefully the final question. What is your company valued at? Have you valued it, and where is it going? What is the future of your company?
Yeah. So Valuations are private, so I can't share any information
Okay.
about that, unfortunately. But we are raising money right now, so if anybody's listening and less interested,
What
out.
talk to us about that. What are you raising? What
Yeah.
series are you? Are you series A?
Yeah. So we're considering ourselves still seed stage because the way our company is structured right now is that we build a fulfillment company and learn all the problems, and now we're trying to build a perfect piece of software to solve every one of those problems that we learned: hiring, recruiting, labor, task management, inventory management, warehouse management, order management. I could go on and on and on. But we solve a whole host of different problems. So that's one part of the company. And then the other part, so that was like the part that did really well, 7 figures, that was that part of it. And now what we're doing is more the software side of things, where we're building the software that we've built and we're selling that to companies. So we build a software internally for our own processes and procedures, and we're turning that software into a commercialized platform where now we're a technology company, not just a fulfillment company. So that's kind of how we're changing. And in terms of, I guess, the raise right now, we haven't decided on kind of valuations and terms, but if you're interested, just reach out. We'll talk a bit more about that privately. But when it comes to kind of where we're going, I mean, yeah, we have some very exciting pipeline developments. We're working with a couple new enterprises, and hopefully we'll talk about that pretty soon here in a bit. And, I'd love to be back on the show sometime and talk a little bit about where we're going. But yeah.
And next time we talk, you might have to take us to one of those your Silicon Valley places. But we will be going to definitely going to be going to your warehouse and seeing that.
Yeah.
I think that'll be fascinating to see actually what.
Yeah. What we've been talking about actually in practice.
Yes. But Jeff, thank you for coming on the show. Thank you for, doing what you do. I think like this whole episode, I think it's been talking about as a young person, you found your own niche, but then you have to figure out how to make it happen, right? Yeah. And I think for you being able to come back and say, I'm gonna stay in KC and figure out how do I help other people do the same thing, that's unique. So thank you for all you do. Thank you for coming on the show. And, I hopefully we inspire more people to be able to, learn more to be like yourself, but also investors who are watching can be able to tag you and say, yo, I want to give you some money. Let's get something going. So, but anyways.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. No,
yes.
I think shows like this are so important, exactly for what you mentioned, inspiring younger folks and just generally giving them the tools where at least it gives you that first initial push where they can now go and do their own self-discovery. But yeah, absolutely.
Thank you. And for those watching from home, it's been another Serial Entrepreneur episode. I'm your host, Zeke Wanganga. And you know where we're at. Subscribe, share, let people know. We are here in KC with dopest people, coolest cats. And I'm going to see you on the next episode. Bye-bye for now. Pow.
I'm dripping, it's working. Around the clock, I get to it. Don't take no breaks, I just do it. Just watch me work, I prove it. I was born with a gift, got the blueprint, top of the class like